Without further ado, I'd like to turn the time over to Shanin Rapp, who is with the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. She's in the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health. And we also have Daniel Lim. He is in the Utah Department of Health and Human Services as well, but he's with the Office of Population Health. So let us give him a warm welcome.
Hello, thank you, welcome. I'm Shanin Rapp, and I'm very happy to see you all here today. I wasn't expecting anyone to show. So you have all increased my participation level by 900%. That's amazing. So thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and tobacco is something that I have a love-hate relationship with and have struggled with an addiction for that longer actually, because I think I started smoking before my addiction. I did. It was my first addiction. So anyway, I'm excited to talk about this topic. Let me introduce Daniel.
Hey everybody, my name is Dan. I'm with the Tobacco Prevention and Control Program, and I'm a health program specialist. And just really grateful to be here today. You'll see this throughout the presentation, but one of the opportunities and the focuses that we really have is to figure out the best way to address nicotine addiction, because we know that it's an important thing to address. We want to make sure that we're doing it the right way. So we know the power of peer support is something that is real, and that's something that as a program, we work statewide. We're the ones that are behind the scenes for any of you. You'll see this a little bit later, but we're the ones that are behind the scenes of the quit line and all the national quit number, quit line, things like that. But really, we're wanting to work with peer support, integrating that lived experience a lot more. And I'm just super excited to be here today. And just like Shanin mentioned, we weren't sure how many people would show up to our presentation today, so we're super excited for each and every one of you. And then also, just as a logistic thing, we're two very low-key people, so if you have any questions, if you want to interrupt us, that's totally fine. Same thing, we've got our great moderator, Sharon. Anyone that has any questions on chat, just please let us know, and we want to make sure that we're getting to your question at the beginning while it's fresh, rather than waiting to the end. But again, super excited to be here.
All right, then let's get started. So, addressing nicotine is a really hard subject. Part of this is because of the stigma and shame still associated with substance use. And we are pioneers here in the recovery movement. We know that there's a lot of stigma that we're fighting against as people get well. And also, when we're talking about whole health, it's really important for us to talk about our physical health. And so there's still a lot of shame and stigma packed around nicotine, and we are running off of this old school paradigm that we have to tackle all the hard drugs first and then nicotine. And I posit that we still live in this world. And it's like I succeeded at these hard things, and now this one last little thing I have, I can quit later, right? Something occurred to me just yesterday when I was talking to a friend. The pathology of addiction is crazy, right? With drug use, there's often consequences that come up in our lives. The thing that's so terrible about addiction is that it doesn't have immediate consequences, right? We don't have the pressures and social consequences. And now with vaping, it's easy to hide it, right? And there's still some of that stigma that we might even have as smokers stepping away to go vape, right? Maybe we feel good about being a vapor and now we're not a smoker anymore, but we still are laden to nicotine. So it's important for us to open these discussions, and it's important for us to tackle stigma because we might be trying to address stigma for ourselves.
So one of the other things that we wanted to bring up, Shanin did a great job of illustrating it. A lot of times we do tend to think that we need to address all those other substances first. But there's a couple studies that have been done from some individuals and some clients that were in recovery. And what they found is that, interestingly enough, by addressing using smoking cessation interventions alongside other treatment, there was actually a 25% increased likelihood of abstinence from alcohol and other illicit drugs. And that was from 6 to 12 months after treatment. So it really shows you the power of addressing a holistic health approach. As we like to say, while there are different addictions and different substances out there, we know that addiction is addiction, right? The fact of the matter is any substance or any behavior that is inadvertently controlling your life, that is becoming something that is a dependence, that's an addiction. And for a person to really be able to holistically be their best version of themselves, it's important to not be dependent, right? And that's something that we want to focus on. So these are kind of some of the studies. And one of the things that we know is when we talk about long-term recovery, what we can see is by quitting smoking, it increases the odds of long-term recovery. And again, we know that a lot of folks may or may not have that immediate desire to quit nicotine, and that's something that's fine, right? Like, we're never going to force, that's something as a program, like as a tobacco prevention control program, we're never going to force anyone to quit tobacco, right? Our message is not like everyone needs to quit. Obviously, like, I have to be completely honest with you, I would love it for there to be no one using any kind of nicotine, right? But we know that there are a lot of factors that play into that, and we heard about some of that in the keynote speaker today. So with that being said, that's something that's really important, is to look at that, because we know that if someone wants to stay, if they want to be able to be recovered from other substances, which a lot of people do, right? If they have an addiction to heroin or an addiction to crack or another substance, they want to become free of that. And if they also use nicotine, if they're able to address that nicotine use alongside it, they're more likely to stay in long-term recovery. And you'll see some other information about that later on, but it's just something really exciting to think about, and also just to think, like, what can come next in your life, right? How powerful are you to be able to overcome one of the most addictive substances on the planet, which happens to be nicotine. And so if you're able to overcome a nicotine addiction, you'll be able to do anything that you put your mind to.
All right, so let's see. So daily use smokers and non-daily use smokers had approximately twice the odds of relapsing and increasing at the end of the treatment period. This is interesting because this study was conducted with 35,000 people, right? That's a large group of people. We know that quitting smoking would improve our health, right? We might not be addressing it with our clients if we aren't addressing it with ourselves. This is why it becomes that kind of elephant in the room. So we did do, last year at the peer conference, we took some surveys and we asked about if people knew about the quit line and how much they considered it a priority for their clients to quit. So it didn't ask about them quitting, it asked about their clients, so that's a step, right? But you can see that out of the group of people that responded to the survey, a lot of clients, a lot of peers consider it a priority for us to get off of other substances, right? That's the highest category, right? When it comes to vaping or smoking, we still said we consider it a priority for our clients. It's still pretty high up there compared to other substances. So we're thinking about it, but are we talking about it?
And I get to be the numbers guy here a little bit. So this is just to kind of give us a little bit more context of the survey. So we did get a wide representation. So just looking at the survey, we got wide representation. I know it's a little hard to see the numbers, but we had a representation of peer support specialists from Salt Lake County all the way to Juab County, and all throughout the state, which we were really excited about. And even this was done last year. We know that peer support has since grown, and every year is continuing to grow. And we felt like it was important to really address that we were getting the opinions of peer support specialists throughout the state. We wanted to get an accurate representation of our state. And also you can see we were able to look at the population served. So you can see, like, there's youth over here and families. So peer support work in several different settings. So really, long story short, we wanted to show that this survey was comprehensive of the workforce, and we're able to get a wide variety of perspectives, because we know what someone says in Salt Lake sometimes may or not be as relevant as what someone's going to say in Juab County or in the southeast or southwest part of the state. But with this survey, we were able to get a wide variety of representation. We were really excited about that.
Okay. So one of the first questions we asked is if people were familiar with Way to Quit. We found that about 2/3 of people are familiar with the website Way to Quit or the organization. And if they were familiar with Quitline services, and you can see that almost 65% said yes, right? We're interested in reaching the other 36% that don't know about it yet, right? So some of the services that are available that people do know about is that there's a personalized plan that happens when you call the Quit line. You get a coach, and they help you develop your own plan and give you some quit tools. And so 55% knew that. 49% know that you get motivational emails and texts or whatever contact that you like. You can have no contact if you prefer that too. 62% said they knew they got supported text messages to help them stay motivated. And up to 12 weeks of NRT, nicotine replacement therapy, is available by calling the Quit line. And then those coaches are working with you as you're using the nicotine replacement. So 72% knew there was phone coaching. So that's positive, right? So the message is around and we know it's out there. So how can we amplify that? Okay.
And just building off of that, one of the things that we're really focusing on as a tobacco prevention program is we're trying to figure out the best way to amplify the services that we provide, and we know that peer support is a very powerful way of doing that, right? We know that peers are able to reach people that, quite frankly, myself working behind the scenes as a tobacco prevention specialist, I'm not able to do that because we don't have exactly necessarily those personal relationships that you get from a peer to a client, right? And from peer to peer. So that's something that we're focusing on. And so we did this survey to ask if peer support specialists were recommending the tobacco quit line. So what we found is that the majority were not referring clients to the quit line. And so that just kind of got us thinking and really just opened up this opportunity. And so we asked why, and what you can see here is that big yellow part of the circle, that 54% were not referred because there was a lack of awareness of the Utah Tobacco Quit Line services. And again, when I say Utah Tobacco Quit Line services, our state's campaign is Way to Quit. You'll see different campaigns throughout the country, but I know I'm a little biased when I say that, but I think our campaign is one of the best ones because Way to Quit, we know that everyone's journey is going to be different, right? And I'll get into this later. Some people, they've tried patches and they didn't like the patches. For some people, they tried the gum, it didn't work for them. Some people, the lozenges, but maybe they like the patches. And some people have tried quitting cold turkey and it worked for them. For some people, it didn't. So that's really the main messaging of Way to Quit. And that's the main messaging of the tobacco quit line services. It's more than just a phone line, although that is a very important component. So that's what we were looking at with these surveys, right? We wanted to ask the question, and we were surprised but also excited with the answer because we figured, well, if it's a lack of awareness, what do we need to do to increase awareness? We can do some presentations. We can work directly with peer support specialists. And that's really why we're here today, because we know that the only way that we can reach the people that need our message the most, because I don't know if most of you know this, but the people that are surveyed that use tobacco, about 70% say that they want to quit. So we know that 70% of people that are using tobacco want to quit. And again, said in the beginning, we respect the decisions of folks that are not ready to quit. That's totally fine. But what we want to make sure is that if and when they're ready, they know that there are services available free of charge to them and that they're not on this quit journey alone. So that's what we're able to see, and that's what we're hoping to do, is to increase the awareness of the quit line services.
All right, so let's talk about things that peers should know about tobacco. We talked about the elephant in the room. We talked about the obvious implications about talking about it. If I talk about it with my client, I think it's important to discuss their health. But if I'm reluctant to discuss the topic specifically because I am experiencing it, it might make it a little bit difficult for me to even offer that service. I might know about it, but then I'm a hypocrite if I'm encouraging someone to quit if I'm still using, right? So it's important to think about this, right? We're all on a journey, and what we have to do first of all is remove that stigma for ourselves, right? We have come a long way, and this might just be one other thing that we have to tackle, but it's important for us to remember to keep bringing that up with our clients. If you see that there, and I have met so many peers in recovery that say that same thing, I wish I could quit. I hate this thing, right? But then we're still doing it.
So one of the important things that when we talk about this as like a program focus is just the language that we choose to use. And we mentioned in the beginning that a lot of times we're not addressing this because of stigma. And so when we think about like our statistics, our rates statewide, I don't know if any of you knew this, but in the entire United States, Utah has the lowest tobacco use rate out of the entire country, which is something that we're really proud about because we know of the harmful effects that tobacco can cause to people's lives, and we want people to live the best life possible for them. But when we talk about language use, it's really important because there are some people that have a very negative association with the word smoker. They think of smokers as X, Y, and Z. And so one of the things that we try to focus on, similar to what's been done with other substances, we don't want to label someone as like an addict, right? We don't want to label someone as this. We want to really put that person first language. And interestingly enough, there was a time when I was giving some classes about tobacco cessation, and we would do this activity, which I would encourage each and every one of you to do, especially for those that use tobacco, to really, when you ask someone like, tell me about yourself, right? Like the first thing that comes to mind, I don't know, someone starts talking about their hobbies, like they say, I'm a runner, I like to run, or I like to do puzzles, or I like to watch Netflix, or I don't know, you guys can think of all your hobbies, right? That's what they're talking about, or I'm a father, I'm a son, I am a brother, I'm a sister, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a husband. So all those things should be what come first, rather than saying like, I am a smoker, I'm a vapor. Even though that is something that might be true about the individual, if we can really shift that focus to really focus on a person, saying a person who smokes rather than a smoker or a person who uses e-cigarettes, we're really trying to address that stigma. And I like this quote here, I just want to emphasize it. This is a quote by Tamri Macon, saying, language matters because our words can reflect our heart and shape our mind. Attention to language moves us from a language just is, it is what it is mentality, to language justice. And so it's very similar to say language just is, but there is a difference saying language justice. And that's what we want to focus on. We want to humanize and recognize interdependence of us all through person-centered phrasing. And that's what is really important. And I think we heard a little bit about this morning in the keynote session, right? Like each of us has a different relationship with nicotine. And as a program, like we're here to say that, everyone is on a different journey, and that is totally fine. We respect if someone uses nicotine, if they decide to smoke or if they vape, that's totally fine. But what we want to make sure that we're doing is we are shifting the language that we use as a program to try to address that stigma, because we want someone that wants to quit tobacco to really be able to be seen as a person rather than someone with a condition. And that's where some of these stigma can come in, right? So we're trying to move away from that, and that's something that we're trying to do as a program.
All right. I think the most important thing I can do as a peer is have an open dialogue with my friends, my clients I'm serving, with my colleagues, my friends. By being unafraid to talk about my problems, I can help my clients be unafraid to address theirs. I'm going to use a little bit of self-disclosure here. Nicotine was my first addiction, and I'm pretty sure I was addicted right away when I used the first time at 14. I was disgusted and enthralled all at the same time, and I'm pretty sure I was a regular smoker by 16. And back then, in the 80s, you could just get cigarettes anywhere. There were vending machines that still gave them out in the coffee shops. So I had a long and arduous relationship with nicotine, and I had along my pathway, I had a 3-year addiction to cocaine, which I overcame, yay, thank you. I have overcome my nicotine addiction many times. But, that's the thing, this is the open dialogue part. I quit for both of my children. I started again. I went to substance use treatment. They gave cigarettes out every day, 10 cigarettes to people that smoked. I quit willingly, gave up those liggets. And 10.5 months went without smoking, and what did I do when I left treatment? I started to smoke again. And then I got working in drug court, working with all these clients, some clients that never smoked their whole life and then started in treatment. Isn't that terrible? So then I taught a smoking cessation class and felt really hypocritical because I'm telling these guys, hey, there's all these reasons you should quit smoking, and I was doing it. I am now a non-smoker, a person who no longer smokes, but I am a person who uses e-cigarettes, and that's just recently. I just got hooked again, so simply. And I'm mad at myself. I'm really mad because I've overcome hard things and done lots of hard things. But now I have a surgery that my doctor's saying I have to quit smoking. Vaping is the same. It's nicotine addiction, right? I need to put down the nicotine to get my surgery. I've never had a you have to do it thing, right? So there's an added pressure. But for me, it's still a disappointment in myself. I have my own stigma toward my own use of e-cigarettes. And I want to forgive myself for that. If I can't forgive myself for that, how do I show grace to my clients, right? I have to show grace to myself first. Okay, so let me just tell you really quick. I have used the Quit line before, and I highly recommend it. They are so cool. They'll do whatever you want. If you don't want a lot of contact, they won't give you a lot of contact. If you don't want any, they'll just send you messages. If you want phone calls, they'll call you to cheer you up. If you want text, they'll send you positive ones. And they have benchmarks, they're checking in on you. How are you doing? It's just nice to have a person along that journey with you, right? And they make it super easy. Nicotine replacement, I have not been very successful with gum or lozenges because they did not work with me. I don't like that in my mouth. But there's a lot of other methods. There's even prescribed medications your doctors can help you with. And I have tried that route as well with varied results. And I'm happy to talk to you personally if you have any questions about the medications available. But there's so many resources. It's just getting to know them, right? It's like all the other great resources out there. It's getting to know them and then sharing them.
And before we continue on, I wanted to share a quote from...
There's a question.
Oh,
yes.
Question, please.
Sorry. What can you expect from the phone calls? Like, is it the same person that calls you, and what are those phone calls like? Like, what do they say to you on those?
So the question is, what can we expect from the phone calls? Is it the same person? What do they say to us? And just to answer that, I can answer from like our program perspective, but I think Shannon, if you want to talk about your personal experience first, and then I'll add kind of some, we are focusing on some different changes with the Quit line services, so I can talk about that in a second. But
So my most recent experience with the Quit line, which was about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years, COVID happened. But anyway, it was not too long ago. I had the same person who was my coach. And that was nice because there was some familiarity there and just feel like, oh, this person knows me a little bit. They know a little bit about my story. And so that was nice to have that person kind of championing me on. And I was also very driven at that point. So to have them at that point felt like, yeah, you're doing it, a cheerleader at that time.
And just add a little bit more to that. So with the Quit line, there's kind of some standard, I guess, quote unquote protocol that the Quit line will follow where they do a series of outbound calls. And to your point, if that's something that you request, if you would like it to always be the same person, that's something that you can say with the first time because those outbound calls are going to be scheduled at a time that's going to work for you because the Quit coach is going to want to make sure they can reach you when you're most available. That being said, like with the Quit line, you can call as many times as you want. Like if you're saying, hey, I need to call right now, I'm having this urge, I just need someone to talk to. If you call outside of that schedule, there's a chance you won't get the same coach. But that coach will work with you to create a schedule, and typically they do about 5 calls and they'll do weekly check-ins. And depending on different conditions that an individual has, like if someone has behavioral health conditions, they do have a special program for that because we know there is a connection with that, so more frequent check-ins are helpful. And then also a priority population that we really want to focus on is pregnant women, just because we know the harmful effects that the secondhand smoke can have towards the growing baby, right? So we want to make that a priority, and so there's actually some some financial incentives as well for those that call the quit line that are pregnant that want to quit. So there's just kind of different, it's a different experience, but at the end of the day, if you feel comfortable having the same coach, you just need to mention that and they will create a schedule to work with what the time that's going to work best for you. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to share a quote for those of you that know who Mark Twain is. Does anybody know who Mark Twain is? Just by raise of hands in the room. Okay, perfect. So Mark Twain is an author. He wrote Tom Sawyer, which is one of my favorite books that I really like and really like the story of it. So he had a quote about quitting smoking. He said, "Giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I know because I've done it thousands of times." So just kind of something to think about, right? Like when we talk about quitting nicotine, we know it's not the easiest thing to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But just know that just want to throw a little bit of humor in there, right? It's fine if someone's tried hundreds of times, hasn't been successful. We don't want anyone to feel like a failure because they haven't been able to give up using nicotine. But so I wanted to do a little walkthrough of the website waytoquit.org. And so I created this video. I'm just going to kind of narrate. This will be kind of a live commentary. So let me just get this video going. So this is the homepage of waytoquit.org. When you go to waytoquit.org, you'll see that if you click on that 3-bar menu up there, it'll kind of give you a summary of everything that's available. And I know it's kind of hard to see, so I'll illustrate it. So where we're going to be looking at today is Get Help Quitting. There's a section called the 5 Ds. So it'll take you straight to the 5 Ds, which are some strategies that you can use to help with your quit. By using the 5 Ds, the first one is delay. There's a couple different games that you can do to kind of give you something to do instead of using tobacco. One of them is distract, do something else. So there's a thing you can click on. It can give you some ideas of other things to do. It can even keep you busy digitally on the computer. Drinking water is another great strategy. And there's just kind of a link you can click on to get kind of some more interactive ideas. And deep breaths, which is actually something that we're going to do with everyone today. There's a couple different strategies for deep breaths, and there's actually a link on the website to a page that we're going to click on. And the last one is discuss, and that's just talking with someone about it, right? Whether that's talking with someone through the quit line, or talking with a peer through peer support, or talking with a friend or family member. So those are the 5 Ds, and you can look at those later. This is also a great resource, just some different quit tips. And we won't look at all of those right now, but there are 10 quit tips there, and there's a lot more out there, and a lot of these strategies will be from the quit coach. But one of them that's really important is to tell family and friends your desire to quit and your desire for support. That creates like the accountability that we're wanting to look for, right? And so we'll look at this actually a little bit later, but these are just some tips for helping people to quit. One of the important things is to not nag or lecture, especially someone that's wanting to quit, like my wife's always telling me this, like, I mean, we know that people are trying to quit. So if we're nagging and lecturing, that's not helping. What can help is to reward milestones, even if it's just one day. If they were to go one day without using nicotine, and just acknowledging that success that they're having and kind of working at the pace. So here's a how to help section, and really you can find some do's and don'ts when talking with friends and family. And there's a lot of great resources there. If we have time later, we can kind of go into some more of those details, but I think it's always helpful. I don't know, maybe it's just me growing up. I just got used to my mom saying, do this, do this, do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. I'm one of those do-don't people, so I'm really used to this kind of format. But I do think it's helpful, and I think it's straightforward. And so what you'll see up here is supporter type. So we're going to do a live demo a little bit here in a minute, so I'm actually going to leave here, and we'll do this maybe towards the end. But we do want to show you this page, and we'll go through it live, so hopefully we'll get someone that can be a great volunteer. But what we'll talk about is, and actually this morning, Donald mentioned this, right? Like that he found out, oh, I needed that cheerleader, or I was that cheerleader. And that's one of the support types. So you'll see here, so we'll need a volunteer here in a minute, but we'll probably get to this right at the end. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. There are different types of supporters, and depending on where someone's at in their quit journey, you might fulfill those different roles depending on what the needs of the person is.
Okay, so I do have experience with quit kits, and when I was in drug court doing the cessation class, I used to get some quit kits for my students. Now it's better for individuals to get their own coach and their own quit kits. But common things that you will find would be water bottles. They were saying one of the D's is to drink a lot of water, distract yourself. So squishy toys, things that your hands can play with, gum to chew, anything hand to mouth, straws, suckers, lozenges, right? Anything that we can do to distract our mouth, our mind, our bodies, those are going to be in the quick kits. So there's all these little tools that can help.
And a lot of these some local health departments will actually have these assembled and ready to give out. So you would just need to reach out to your local health department. And if you have any questions about the contact information for that afterwards, definitely let me know. But I do know that some have them more readily available than others, but it is a great strategy.
Another thing is that some agencies, I don't know, Daniel, if this is true. I've heard some agencies can build quick kits for their clients. So if you work for an organization and you would like to do this for your clients, talk to your administration because they can get with the health department and you can assemble the quick kits you want to build for your clients.
Yep, and you can really kind of customize it the way that you want. But quick kits are great. Everyone loves free things, right? Especially if it's sweet. I say like the candy in there is a great addition. All right, so I wanted to, and I think we have time, right, to do one of these. So you probably won't do the full one, but I'm gonna go ahead and click on this link. For those that are online, feel free to scan this QR code, but we're gonna do this together as a group. So this will take us to the Way to Quit website, and from the Way to Quit website, so we're gonna click on this deep breaths part. And under here, there's a link to this breathwork exercise. So we're gonna go here, and there are 3 options. They're all great, kind of depending on what your needs are. Each one's slightly different, but for those that are here, does one of those 3 sound more interesting to you? No worries, craving curve, or clear lungs?
1, 2, or 3.
Anyone have any preferences? 1, no worries, okay. So we're gonna do this. So before we get it, just want everyone to just be prepared. You can close your eyes or keep them open for the first time if it's helpful. It's gonna kind of guide you through the process. It'll tell you when to breathe in, when to breathe out. And I don't know if we'll go the full 5 minutes, but we'll just kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. So feel free to get started. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and stop that, but hopefully you guys can see, and if you scroll down on there, there's also an app, but you'll see it'll actually show you. But hopefully, while we were doing that, you guys were able to really be present and to kind of forget about any worries that you had. I know it can be kind of awkward doing long breaths, but it really does help, especially if the only thing you're thinking about is, I need my vape, I need to smoke, I need nicotine. If that's what's on your mind, doing this deep breath can help. Not going to say it's the only answer and it'll cure everything, but it is a start. It is something that is one of the strategies that we have. Oh, this one is me too. I'll start this. So I really like this analogy, and Shanin mentioned this too, that sometimes we feel like if we are currently using tobacco or nicotine or smoking or vaping, that we can't help anyone else. That is also because we feel a little hypocritical. And so to kind of overcome that, there's this analogy that I really like. And so I want everyone to imagine that you're climbing up a mountain with some friends, and you're trying to encourage each other to get to the top. So I want you to imagine if it's a very steep climb. Anyone here that's climbed Mount Timpanogos in Utah County knows that that's it's a very steep hike, right? So imagine if you didn't receive any kind of like, oh, you can do it, or any kind of motivation until someone was at the top yelling down at you, right? We don't have to be at the top yelling down at people to say, I did it, you can do it too. We can even be at a different stage in our quit journey, right? We can be below someone, like we can be behind them saying, I know you can do this, you're hiking a little faster than me. In my case for hiking, sometimes my ankle goes bad, so I say, my ankle's bad, but I know you can do this, I believe in you. And that's what it's all about. It's about meeting peers where they're at, and even if you yourself use any kind of tobacco or nicotine, you can still encourage others to quit if that's their desire, right? You can still encourage them. You don't have to be at the top of the mountain to help someone. I think Shanin is a great living example of that, where like you don't have to be at the top of the mountain 100% completely free from nicotine to help others. Because what people need is they need encouragement. We need less judgment. We need less criticism. We need help. And whether that help is from someone that uses tobacco, at this point, what I want to say is it really doesn't matter. You don't have to be at the top to help someone who's at the bottom. You can help from the middle. You can help from the beginning, all throughout the process.
All right, so it's important that we talk about what we see as the cycle of addiction, right? We have, and I want to just point it out too, because it's really insidious, right? We have the craving. It starts with maybe some frustration going on, right? And then we start fantasizing or maybe even obsessing about a way to get out of this problem or this feeling or whatever. And then comes the substance use, right? In the cycle of addiction, if that substance use was one of our illicit drugs, we know that's going to toss us right back into this loss of control cycle. And then we would be way back in the shame and guilt cycle, right? Trying to quit again, trying to get back into treatment or whatever. And that's that old insidious shame cycle of addiction. Let's skip that. When we look at this and we think of it more like a continuum, like a spiral, right? I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to stop. I might relapse and slide back down, but I try again. I might relapse and slide back down. I lapse and slide down, but I keep trying and I keep climbing. The important thing to know is that it takes the average person 30 times quitting to be successful. God has blessed those people that can do cold turkey and just be done with it. I'm not that person, and so I guess I'm on my 28th try, but I'm going to keep quitting until I'm successfully quit, right? But anyway, I love this idea, so I wanted to introduce it to you, right? We're just on a journey. We're on a continuum. All of us are, and we are at different places. So I'm glad that Daniel pointed out that we might even have clients more advanced than us, right? Maybe their recovery over nicotine is more successful than ours, but we're not comparing, right? Because we're all on our own journey. All right. This I wanted to show you. I think this is such an interesting slide. I don't know about you, but I think that some of the miscommunication around nicotine is this belief that e-cigarettes are healthier than regular cigarettes. Okay, we already know that that's not true. We know that they don't have the carcinogens that e-cigarettes or that regular cigarettes do, but they're, come on. We don't know. There's still tons of research emerging about the dangers of e-cigarettes, right? But look at the content of nicotine. Okay, this is the part that we know, but let's revisit. A package of cigarettes gives you 20. You're really getting about 22 milligrams of nicotine from one package of cigarettes. Okay? Now, if I do a jewel pod, I'm at 41 milligrams. I've doubled a packet of cigarettes. Okay? And I'm getting the amount of nicotine of 37 cigarettes versus a pack. Okay? Now, if I try some of these others, they deliver up to 400 milligrams. And let's talk about it. There's some now that are 8,000 puffs, 12,000 puffs. How many milligrams is that? Okay, we don't know. I don't know with one that big, but look at an L bar that says 650 milligrams, and look at that. 590 cigarettes I could have smoked from one pod. Isn't that horrifying when we look at it like this? Nicotine is the most addictive substance known to man. So we should cut ourselves some slack, right? And these e-cigarettes have made nicotine delivery so easy. And young kids are getting their hands on it. I was addicted at 14 with one cigarette. What are these pods doing, right? So it's important for us to talk about health and that this is a crutch, that this is equivalent to still being smoking cigarettes, to being a person who uses cigarettes, or a person who smokes. So it's important to remember the value of stepping down our nicotine use. And I'm not saying that e-cigarettes can't be a way to do that, but to be very mindful of the power of the addiction, the addictive properties of nicotine.
And I'll be really quick on this one, so I want to make sure we have time to do the supporter quiz at the end. But so what Shanin said is correct, and one of the ways we always recommend dealing with a nicotine addiction is through two approaches. One of them is your pharmacological or like medicine approach, and the other is through like counseling or those calls or talking through it, right? So these are the forms of nicotine replacement therapy that are available. So you can see the ones with the little arrow are available through the quit line or through Way to Quit. And the ones with the star, those require a prescription. So some of these you can get over the counter. The first one is the nicotine patch. That's one of the more common ones that's used. A lozenge is fairly common, and the gum. Those top three are the ones that are more common because they don't require a doctor prescription. The other three, the nicotine nasal spray, the varenicline, which actually does not contain nicotine, and bupropion, those two do not contain nicotine. It's kind of, and actually also used to treat medical, it's also used to treat some behavioral health conditions such as depression and things like that. But each and every one of these kind of has their own side effects, so that's something that you would really need to talk about it with your healthcare provider. But we want to make sure that everyone knows that there's not just one option. And the nice thing about nicotine replacement therapy, as opposed to e-cigarettes, is you can see the amount of nicotine. You know exactly the amount of nicotine that you're going to get in an NRT, and then you can gradually kind of phase out. You can kind of change the dosage that you're taking and things like that. But with the e-cigarette, as we saw in the earlier slide, there's a lot more nicotine that's going into the bodies of people that are using it. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And we're going to go ahead and do this. So I want to see if we get one person that can volunteer for us. Anyone here in the audience that can be a brave volunteer. Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to do this. What type of supporter you are. So we're going to ask you a couple questions. So if you can see it, we're going to start the quiz. So your loved one asks help for quitting. Are you more likely to, and I'll just say A, B, C, or D. Hopefully you can kind of see those. What would you say? Give words of encouragement, make a quit plan, create a quitting to-do list and timeline, or talk about their decision.
I would be 2 or 3 because I see those things similar.
Okay, so should we go
Probably the plan.
2? Okay. Next question.
Will you repeat that, Dan? Will you repeat? They're not seeing it online.
Oh, yeah. So your loved one asked for help quitting. Are you more likely to? And she selected make a quit plan. So the next question, to distract your quitter from a craving, would you give them a motivational speech, find an activity to do right then, dishes, etc., pick an activity from a list you already had made, or go to a yoga class, or on a peaceful walk?
Probably, I say find an activity to do right then, but it might be a peaceful walk.
Okay, we'll go with the yoga class or peaceful walk. Okay, what best describes you? Upbeat, and I can't read sideways, hopefully you can read.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Motivational,
Constructive.
constructive criticism, and tough love are part of every process. Organized, create a plan and timeline for way to get things done. Easygoing, calm in most situations. Great listener.
Upbeat, anything is possible.
Upbeat, anything is possible. So that's the top for me. Okay. Perfect. So based off of those answers, your current role of what type of support you are is a coach. So quitting is like training. It takes time, practice, and a coach who can motivate the quitter to keep going. You are that coach. You can't make them quit, but you can encourage them, help them get the tools they need, and motivate them to keep trying. So we do have so this is one of those 5D water bottles. So it just has the strategies on it. So I just encourage everyone to really look at this because, like I said earlier, sometimes we'll have a different role. Some of those that you can kind of do it. One of them is cheerleader. That comes up. One of them is coach. There's a couple other ones. But really it's important to know that, everybody's going to need a different kind of support depending on where they're at.
All right, so as we're closing things up, I just wanted to talk about some comments that were made from last year's survey. And so I've colored the ones I think that are really important. There's easier access to the quit line, and a lot of people didn't know that it existed. So we're working on that. It's increasing access, right? And letting people know what resources are available. Even being able to have group information available, which is why we encourage you to have us come to your agencies if they're interested in working on nicotine replacement for clients. Having more materials to distribute, to get the word out, right? That's always powerful. People like to have information in hand. Also, the importance of youth awareness, right? If we can educate the youth, if there's some way to empower them in the choices that they make, we could help them avoid so many problems, right? Pretty sure was. Yes, we'll do a presentation. Do support groups. There's actually a Nicotine Anonymous group. If you like the 12-step model, that's a really great support group. Peer workers are the way to do it, right? Peers are the ones working boots on the ground every day with people, helping them try to improve all the areas of their life, right? So you're the perfect people to deliver this message. By having more knowledge, we can do that. We can share info. People said they wanted info about quitting chewing tobacco. Does it address that?
Yeah, on the Way to Quit website, we do have a section specifically about chewing tobacco. So there's also a feature.
So, some people said, some person made a comment that it's up to our clients if they want to quit smoking or not, and that is absolutely true. Autonomy is everything, right? We just want to encourage them. We want to, informed choice is good choice, right? We want to give people information so they can make better choices. Most importantly, I want to point this out again, don't stop quitting. Keep trying until you quit successfully. And that's my best message. It's an insidious substance, and don't be hard on yourselves. You have overcome so many things already, and this is just one thing. We have questions. We have time for questions if anyone has a question.
How does that $100 stipend work to motivate?
Oh, so that was just,
Or those are things that would be.
yeah, someone was saying like, if we had $100 stipend, if they don't want to quit, we can't force them to quit.
Right.
But with the quit line, the stipends that are available, I mentioned earlier specifically for different populations. One of those is pregnant women that want to quit. Other than that, the quit line doesn't offer anyone else the financial stipend.
Which might be a good reason to build a quit kit for your clients, for those clients that want to try.
Is the mic
smoking cessation. That would be important to building the quick kits for your clients if you decided to do it as an agency for those clients that are interested in trying to quit. Yeah. Okay. Yes. One more question.
For the quit line, they have people who speak Spanish or
Yes.
any other different language?
Yes. The question was, are there Spanish-speaking coaches on the quit line? And yes, there are. Are there other languages?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, I can speak to that as well. So there are other languages offered. Spanish is after English, Spanish is the most common language. And not only Spanish language, but one of the other things that we do as a program, and we actually do this in conjunction with some of our community partners, is we work a lot with, specifically with Centro Hispano and Comunidades Unidas. They're kind of some of our community partners that we work with. But we make sure that the quit line is offering not only the Spanish language, but also culturally appropriate strategies, because we know that each culture has a different viewpoint on nicotine and tobacco. And so we want to make sure that our quit coaches are addressing that. And the Spanish website is dejaloya.org. So it's the Spanish version of Way to Quit. And there's a link to it at the top page of Way to Quit. If you click Spanish, it'll go to the Spanish version.
Great question. All right, well, I think that's it.
Think so?
We did it.
Thanks so much, everyone.